Oh, and before we start, we have buttons that say, the chatter from the cicadas was deafening, and if you ask a really good question, I get a button. Okay? Okay.
Where we start? I'm Aaron Foster. I played Kip, and I don't know. I was very happy to be part of this and be able to test out a new work. Is always interesting, so you don't have anything to fall back on. But let me look it up on YouTube how they did it in Des Moines and whatever. So it was always fun to kind of do your own thing, and try to figure it out as you go. It's a little hard.
I'm Tashina Habibian, and I played Phoebe. And yeah, I kind of came into this 2 weeks into the process, but it's been awesome.
Yeah. My name's Bryce Kyle. I played Ethan. And I agree with Aaron. I've never had the opportunity to do a new work before. So I've done some table reading before, like a test out script, but to actually put someone on his feet is very scary, but it's very freeing because you can really lose yourself. And you can say, I was the first one to do that. So now everyone's going to copy me. My shoes aren't on. I brought flip-flops. I didn't want to wear my shoes. Well, there you go.
Is there something wrong with wearing flip-flops?
No.
Greg.
And I'm Greg Burdick. I'm the playwright of Monessen Falls.
Yes.
I enjoyed it. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, which is kind of the backdrop for this story. I currently live in Florida, and was thrilled to learn that this piece was going to be developed here. And I'm so happy to be able to watch Aaron and Tashina and Bryce bring it to life, along with the incredible technical staff here. Starting 2 weeks ago, I started getting text messages of little glimpses of the set, and it's like a little kid on Christmas, like the night before, just waiting, because she was sneaky. She wasn't revealing a whole lot. She wanted to surprise me, and I'm glad you did. So I was thrilled, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today. This play was workshopped in a theater company in Baltimore back in 2015, and that led to significant rewrites and some restructuring and things like that. And I think any writer will tell you that even when they think it's done, it's not done. Seeing it in this format with three fantastic performers who were fully invested in every moment, it was very informative to me to be able to see what's working and what still isn't. And I don't fault them at all. You can only be as good as your material, and I still see all the holes. There will be tweaks from here on out. To be completely truthful, this was the first piece that I ever really wrote.
Oh, you started here.
I started writing this play back in 2002 when my family was on vacation. We were at the beach for a week, and I got up very early in the morning before the sun came up and sat out just listening to the ocean. I had an idea for a story, and I just started writing. I wrote about the first 20 pages. And the end of the week was over, and I got home, and I looked at it, and I said, I'm not really happy with this. And I stuck it on a shelf. And it stayed on that shelf for about 13 years.
Oh, I feel so much better.
And it was just kind of mocking me all of that time. And I got to a point where I said, well, it's time to do something or get off the pot. And I'm a teacher, so I had the summer off, and I made a promise to myself that I was going to have a draft by the end of the summer. So I set a goal to write 5 pages a day.
Okay.
And some days I wrote 5. Some days only 1 came out. Some days none came out. And by the end of the summer, I still wasn't there. I was into the last scene, maybe about 10 pages shy. And I knew how I wanted it to end. I had the whole concept of how it was going to finish, but I'd run out of time. So I was writing into planning week during that school year. And before we started back, I I had a draft, and I immediately shared it with a colleague of mine who was a former English teacher. And when she read it, she said, "You need to start submitting this immediately." I was at that point where I couldn't even imagine people reading it and not wanting to hide under the seats. I couldn't even manage it. But her faith in me really, I guess, steeled me with the courage to try. And then after I did it, I started to write the shorter pieces. And was it 2015? 2015, I learned that one of my short plays was going to be featured in a festival up in Michigan. And then a week later, the company that did the reading in Baltimore of this play emailed me. And I was like, oh, it's really starting to happen. So it was a long journey.
That helped you the inspiration to complete the play then?
Yeah, it made me more courageous in trying. Just finishing that first marathon, I guess.
So in that 13-year break, did you write some of the shorter plays then?
No, it wasn't until after I wrote this play that I started
You
writing
started
other
with.
plays. Also, I shared this with Sandra, and I think you might appreciate this. I started in 2002. I finished it in 2015, right? And it's 2019 in the summer. It's 17 years.
I know, I
That's
cried.
awesome, man. I love that.
I don't know about you, but
Oh, that's fantastic.
I'm kind of a believer
Started
in
in 2002?
2002.
Yeah. 17 years.
Love it.
There's hope for you, Ethan.
Hey, I hope so.
And then the other good question, was it any of it based on any truth in your life? Did you read it?
My mother is still very much alive, and I didn't kill my dad. And my brother and I get along just fine. So yeah, it's any writer will tell you that their writing is grounded in truth some way, but it's heightened. It's inflated for dramatic purpose. Whoever told you that you shouldn't pull from personal trauma,
It's crazy.
you need to stop listening to them. Because if you allow yourself to share that with the world, your work is going to be much more honest. And you're going to find that you're not the only person that's gone through whatever it is that you think that you're dealing with. And it will resonate with other people. So be courageous, dare to be bold, put it on the page.
Trouble writing the first line.
Oh, the first sentence?
Yeah.
No, I guess the first line is the stage direction.
Yeah.
And the image of the two of them in bed and him waking up screaming was very strong early on. And him finding his voice at the end was also very, very set early on. And the idea of both of them being responsible for the death of their parents was there. So it was really more about connecting all of the dots. How do I get from here to there? Does that make sense?
So you had that theme first. That was you had the plot arc.
Well, yeah. Originally, I haven't shared this with the actors or even Sandy, but originally the script was grounded much more in like a religious slant, which is kind of interesting because Kip and Ethan, I'm not particularly religious, but I looked to Cain and Abel. I mean, the names are very close, right? And I had Ethan going to chiropractic lessons that Mom was paying for, and he was trying something on her, and he broke her neck.
Jesus.
And then the more
I like it.
but the more I thought about it, as much as that's an accident, it's really he's more culpable that way, and I really needed something that was equitable. It really wasn't any fault of Kip's that he freaked out when the spider bit him.
We could have helped the ladder.
And
Christ,
it
Too
really,
soon, sorry.
He was a child.
he had really no way of knowing that it wasn't the rug that was blocking the door. And so I felt that was a tighter balance.
Better balance.
So
Shame without guilt.
yes.
I mean, the character of Kip to me changed a lot through the process. One example is I don't know, a month ago I was like, I'm very, wardrobe is very particular to me as an actor, and I had a wardrobe picked out and I had reasons for all that, and then it stopped making sense to me as we got a little bit further into it, and so that changed. And unfortunately, it became a lot more. I realized that I was a lot closer to Kip than I had initially thought, and so I don't particularly like to sort of wear my own clothes and sort of look like myself, but that kind of just became more of what I did than I normally would choose to do as an actor.
With all the changing of clothes.
Yeah, it's just the stuff that I had got a whole wardrobe of this original thought that I had, and really just ended up kind of wearing similar to the way I dress, myself, which I really try to get away from as an actor, but it just seemed I did not kill my father, but I have some issues around that, and I have a brother who passed away about 10, 11 years ago that I have a lot of issues around, so there's a lot in this. Part of reading the script was like, well, I'm never going to deal with this, but maybe I can kind of deal with it on stage at least.
Wow. So you ended up putting a lot more of yourself into this than you imagined.
Yeah, I think so.
It took us a while to find Phoebe, and then it hit Sandy one day, and
Yeah.
and then we
Aha!
It
we
wasn't
all
being
kind
my-
of spent
my
full
fault.
force. Lines definitely helped when we got closer to getting off book. It started flowing a lot more, and more play was able to happen, which was very beneficial for the production of the show. Yes, and I think just some, like in certain aspects, well, I don't know, I have, the play resonates a lot with me personally as well, with some stuff with my father and his brother, and so it's very interesting to see that happening right in front of you.
And you could draw on that.
I made a lot of jokes early on that I was
yeah.
getting typecast. I know, how big is that, right? That I was getting typecast for being a fat drunk. But not you, she's the one that called me. But very similar to Aaron, actually. I despise being in my own clothes, and all those T-shirts are mine. I'm a graphic tee wearer, but it was one of those things where like I kept reading Ethan. I'm like, this guy is just a fucking asshole, and there's no redemption. And I kept reading the scene about the ladder, and I'm like, I hate this. I was going to call Greg and be like, Greg, what the hell's going on with this ladder scene? And it wasn't until we got it on its feet, and we were going back and forth, and Aaron and I, we did we all did house rehearsals on top of what we were doing. We would go and just kind of play in different spaces and see what that would feel like. And it wasn't until we kind of dropped the book and we were like, okay, let's go through this thing as best we can. And I realized so much that for Ethan and for me, in order for him to say, hey, I fucked up too, he had to hear Kip say. And so while I couldn't understand why he was doing, because I'm like, you killed him. He says you killed him, and then what the hell? But then it clicked. I looked at Aaron, and he was crying one day, and I was like, oh my God, I get it now. And then I forget. And I knew I didn't have to call you. But no, it was, it's just like, it's hard to be drunk on stage. It's a hard thing to do, and
Which is the real reason I cast him, because he's an incredible actor, and you can have a really bad drunk actor up there and it really is a shame. So that's why
yeah, I appreciate that, and it's something that I freak out about because again, I'm going to go back into the glasses pushing up acting school stuff. But any time you're in something that's very serious, they warn you like you don't want to be drunk on stage because people are going to pick it apart. You can't do it because in real life, if you're drunk, you try really hard not to seem like it. Yeah. And so it's really easy on stage to just go into this belligerence and be like an asshole and spilling stuff. But I tried, so hard to I put myself in this. And plus, he's drinking scotch, and so I'm like, okay, well, I like scotch. And if I huff down a bottle of scotch, how would I be drunk than if I had a couple beers and I'm having a nice loopy drunk or some wine or whatever? But that's neither here. That's the process. But I guess to answer your question is, it's really well written. I mean, honestly, Greg, there's so much like, yeah, Evan, thank you. You're right. And so like when I started digging in, the answers were already there. And as an actor, when you can start playing those answers, the truth comes out. And it's not hard to imagine accidentally killing your dad or accidentally killing your mom without realizing it. My mom was in the show last night. I was losing my mind because she's sitting out there. I'm like, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, the truth is in the script. The actor's job is easier. But we still really want the authenticity. And I have a treat to work with Aaron at Tashina. I mean, Aaron is one of my favorite scene partners I've ever had because he gives. He gives and he gives and he gives and he gives. And Tashina gives. And so it's really easy to like, if we throw something out, I can see the look in his eye like, okay, well, and it's just this magic. And I've come to love that, we call it the Christina Marrero scene. In the last fight before the breakdown, every night we challenge each other to try something different, and or in the afternoon in this case. And so to have that trust is pretty sweet. And Sandy let us play. I mean, Sandy's, her directorial style, yeah. She doesn't say you got to do it this way. She says, hey, I didn't like that. Let's try it different. So, okay.
That's why I asked you guys first before I asked.
Yeah, no, I mean she let us do what we want. I mean, in the beginning, of course,
Yes.
Hi, I'm Norm Robbins with Reno Arts News, and I'm obviously recording this. What was of interest to me and what I wrote about in my critique was your use of catharsis. And I compared it to Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, where it was really sick catharsis. But in your play, catharsis seems to be the only way out of this dilemma. And you end your play not in a miserable way, as they did in the 20th century, but on a happy note where everybody is reconciled, there's peace. Tell us your take on catharsis.
Well, my entry point to the story was really with a focus on the Greeks. I started writing a tragedy, and so your use of catharsis that's very flattering because that was my intention. But the Greeks totally destroyed their title characters. They started as moral people at the beginning and were completely shells of themselves at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want that. I wanted, these two were shells of themselves at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I wanted reparations. But I'm not sure that I would completely agree that things are fully restored. I think it's fairly clear that maybe these two really aren't going to see much of each other in the future. Their paths have diverged, but they're confident enough to be able to make that path and leave behind what they need to leave behind.
May I ask you a follow-on question? Sure. My publisher said to me, "What's with Phoebe coming on to Ethan?" I said, she wasn't coming on to Ethan. What the author is doing is leveling the playing field. Kip came on to Ethan's girlfriend. The peacemaker, Phoebe, leveled the playing field by doing the same thing with Ethan, planting a big kiss on his mouth and putting his hands on her lovely backside. So, who's right, my publisher or me?
I really love your comment. Then I'll leave it there.
Oh, I take that as something I can say thank you for.
Thank you.
Oh,
wait.
Give me one of those.
Get that button.
That's a button question for sure.
It's coming right. No, it's coming right at the camera, right?
Oh,
There it is.
All right.
it's out of
Greg is-
focus.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
The mystery one. We got one right here, Ryan.
One more, Ryan.
Sure. Just a question for all of you. Is there a moment or line in the play that sticks out with you as your favorite, as the playwright and director in it?
You can start that one.
I think my favorite, I have two. Can I do two? Yeah. Christina Marrero.
Yeah.
Love that.
Sorry.
I just love Christina Marrero. We looked her up on Facebook.
Like, we
There's a
both-
real
she's
Christina
real.
Marrero.
She is?
Yeah. She doesn't know, Greg, what you've done though. I think she's in her 50s. Like,
Well, all right.
yeah. And then my second is the breakdown that Ethan has, the whole decline, and watching that. Those are my two favorite bits. I love the relationship between the brothers, and so those are my favorite aspects.
I'm gonna cheat and take one of Aaron's lines because I can easily say my own because I do love the breakdown monologue. But my favorite part is right before Ethan comes back in, and I'm gonna butcher it, Kip, so please fix it for me. He says, Ethan's just as fucked up as I am. And that is the first time where Kip, I'm not in the room as the character, but when he says it out loud, I think that's the start of the catharsis. And I think that for me is like, okay, now the stakes are here. And it's the first time that I think Kip, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, has his own kind of come to terms with his, you know what I mean, his mortality as well. Yeah, that's...
My favorite is when I get to invade his corner
Oh, yeah.
over there.
Yeah, that's fun.
Just, it's when he says do what you want, I'm like, okay. So,
Very nice.
Yeah, it's well motivated. I like that part too.
Kipster?
I don't know. I like the back and forth that we have, and his finally just that sort of gut punch of like I took the money to the Meadows, just like holy shit, and it's. I mean, I kind of have to already figure the money's gone, but that's just the reality of like, oh, that didn't go well, most likely. Obviously it did, but I like the turn there of him sort of coming clean with that and how it's just like, oh, we're fucked.
Yeah.
Greg, what was your favorite moment of your own play?
Well, it's funny. I think it's been colored by some of the terrific readings of these three people that I'm sitting here with. But watching it today and last night, one of my favorite moments is his speech when he fantasizes about being able to take the money, driving to New York and dropping it at his feet, and in your effing face as.
I do love that part.
You can tell it was a joy to watch. It was a joy to watch.
It's a very winning moment.
Because I felt like, it's a moment of vindication for him. He's been a loser the whole show. I think it was you earlier who said, this guy's he's completely, to use Kip's words, pathetic, right? And, he somehow managed to make it right.
Well, thank you, Greg, for letting
thanks,
us
Greg.
do your...
Thank you. Thanks to all of you for coming out and supporting local
Yes.
theater and companies like Luck Macbeth who are invested in bringing new work to light. Please continue to do that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have buttons on the way out if you want one.